in the Department of Business and Tourism. Sorry about that. And pretty active in sort of the Nova Scotia business community in sort of the early stage startup, scale up companies. So really excited to be here tonight. This is, I guess, I believe, 8th, maybe 9th session of the Mount St. Vincent Department of Business and Tourism Fireside Chat. Really excited today to have Premier Tim Houston join us. We'll try to keep it to about 45 minutes and let people get on with their evenings, but really happy you guys were able to join. Also like to thank Jen McBride, who will be hosting the Premier this evening with a number of questions. If anyone, we do have, I think, some security settings in place. So if there's any questions anyone would like to ask, they can email business@msvu.ca, and those questions will float through to Jen and I. So I would ask nobody to pick up the microphone. I'm not sure you could if you wanted to, but that's sort of the, I guess, the housekeeping things for this evening. So again, welcome. I appreciate everybody attending. Jen, I'll turn it over to you and fade into the background.
Thank you, Jeff. So good evening, everybody. Good evening, Premier Houston. Thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight and to answer some student questions. We have students from many different programs and backgrounds here tonight that will end up working in many different roles and industries, and some perhaps will end up in a career in politics. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself to get started?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Jeff, and thank you for everyone joining today. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge International Women's Day today, and strong women in my life who have also been part of my journey into politics. So for me, I mean, I come from my dad was in the military, so we kind of moved around a lot, and I did most of my growing up in Halifax. He was posted to Shearwater when I was in grade 8, so I was junior high. We lived in Fairview. He was at Shearwater, but Fairview Junior High, Halifax West, and then I went to St. Mary's. I studied accounting and became an accountant, and then just when I got my CA designation, the same year in 1995, got married that year, and we moved to Bermuda, and we lived there for 12 years, and our family was started there. So but in 2007 we came back to Nova Scotia. We wanted our kids to grow up in Nova Scotia. So I tell that because through all that time, I didn't grow up in a political household. I wasn't interested in politics. We didn't talk politics. We didn't, it wasn't something that we were really interested in. I don't think that's really that uncommon for a lot of people. But when we came back to Nova Scotia, I got back into business. My kids were in the school system, and we were just kind of identifying a lot of things that were happening. And I just started to kind of ask questions about, well, who makes those decisions? How does that happen? That type of stuff, and kind of peeled it back. And that was how I became interested in politics in the beginning, I guess, which is around 2012. So that's the long version. The short version, I say, is there's only 2 ways people get interested or involved in politics. And one, they get asked, somebody says, hey, you should get involved in politics. Or 2, they get upset or angry about some government policy that kind of makes them pay attention. And so for me, there was a combination of things happen, but I didn't like what I was seeing. And I remember the day I was at the rink with my son, and somebody said to me, well, if you think you can do better, you should put your name forward. So I remember that night I went home and I said to Carol, I said, I got a great idea. I'm going to get out of business and get into politics. And she had a certain reaction to that, but she asked a fair question at the time. She said, what party? Because we didn't have any political affiliation. So I didn't really know. But so I researched the parties and, just tried to identify where my values align. But that was kind of I had a long journey to politics, and I don't think that's that uncommon from a lot of people that I know. Something triggers it in the end that makes them pay attention, and that's what happened for me as well. And I was a grown man in my 30s at that time with a family.
For sure, yeah, that makes sense. I'm not sure any little kid thinks I want to be a politician when I grow up, but perhaps they exist. So as a business student myself, majoring in accounting, I wonder how your education and experience in accounting help prepare you for your career and your current role.
Yeah, so I think, look, the diversity of thought is important in every aspect of our life, but even more so, I think, in politics. You can't have a legislature full of, just all lawyers, for example, or all teachers, or all accountants, for that matter, because it's just, government that is for the people has to come from the people. That's, diversity of thought. That's, different geographic regions, different. But for me, personally, as an accountant, as a business person, I have a certain view of the world that I try to always relate things back to the numbers, and I think that kind of suits me well. And most of my colleagues don't, so when we put things together, we start to get to real places with real ideas. But for me, it's I think it's I don't know, maybe I'm weird for I love accounting. I enjoyed my career in accounting. I always thought that my education in accounting opened a lot of different doors for me, because everyone needs accountants. So lots of different opportunities came, and then using that skill set in the role I'm in now as a politician, and certainly now as premier. I think it gives me a frame of reference to analyze ideas and different options, because I can always distill it back to what's the financial impact and what's the cost benefit, and what if we did something else, what's that cost benefit of that. So it kind of gives you you can ground things, and once you can ground things, you can start to make decisions on the impact of them. So but there's lots of different paths to politics, and I do think you're right. It's very rare that anyone grows up thinking we really want to be a politician when I grow up, and certainly in today's world, being a politician is a bit of a dirty word. Like it really is, and in a lot of cases that's for good reason. But so we work hard to try and try and be fair, to try and be thoughtful, to try and be compassionate in the way we govern the province, and restore some of the public confidence in politics, because we know there's a long way to go there, for sure.
For sure. You said it might be weird that you love accounting, but I can totally relate. I don't think it's weird at all, because I love it too. So you mentioned that when you graduated from university, you moved to Bermuda for a few years. What drew you to Bermuda? And do you have any advice for students who are looking for work opportunities abroad?
Yeah, so even if, for me, and this is kind of, I'm 52 years old, and a lot of my friends I feel are still trying to find their way, different careers along the way. I look at my son, who's 20, and he's trying to figure out what he wants to do. I was a little different. My daughter's more like me in this particular sense. She's in law school because she knew she wanted to be a lawyer. She just followed that path. But for me, when I was in high school, grade 11 accounting, we had a guest speaker came in at the time. The person was an accountant at Nova Scotia Power, and they talked about the jobs they'd had. They talked about how much money they made. I think at the time it was 100 grand a year. And I said, well, that's great. Maybe I'll be an accountant. And I just kind of stayed focused on that. So I was fortunate in a way that I was able to find that path. And then through that path, I mean, becoming a chartered accountant at the time, CPA, now it is, but I went to school at St. Mary's with Bermudians. And I'm sure you have some Bermudians at St. Mary's. I'm sure a lot of them, or at the Mount, I'm sure a lot of them still come up here. And then in the CA program, Bermudians came up. So I always knew Bermudians, and I always thought, gee, when I get my designation, I think it might be fun to go to Bermuda for a couple of years. We ended up staying for 12, but I think I think one of the things when you look at the economy and the job market and the opportunities, I think there's lots of opportunity in Nova Scotia, but I also think that there's lots of opportunities elsewhere. And sometimes people choose to go away. I just want to go away and see part of the world. But what's good for our province is when when people come back and they bring their skill sets and their life experiences back to the province. That's a really powerful thing for just makes just enriches our community. So for me, it's kind of like it was kind of an easy thing to become an accountant, and it was an easy thing to say, well, maybe I'll go to Bermuda. Just these moments in my life that kind of turned on a light bulb for me that I just followed. But there's lots of I would say, if anyone has a little bit of a curiosity spark that says they want to see some of the world, I think it's great. I really do, to go away and experience some of the world. And I just hope you come back to Nova Scotia and apply your skills here and make our community stronger. So there's lots of, the job market is different. It changes every year. Certainly when I graduated, it was a different time and a different job market than it is right now. But I would say to anyone, don't let geography limit your thoughts on the potential of what you can achieve, because it's a big old world out there.
Yeah, you're right about that. Sure is a big old world out there. When you moved back to Canada, you chose rural Nova Scotia, and you grew up mostly in Halifax. You said spent your university years in Halifax. So what made you choose rural Nova Scotia over, the bigger city, I guess? And why should students consider rural Nova Scotia upon graduation?
Yeah, so I grew up mostly in Halifax. My wife Carol grew up in Timberley, but her family always had a family cottage in rural Pictou County, so she spent her summers there. Well, we were living in Bermuda. Her parents retired and they moved to the cottage. So when we would come back on vacation back to Nova Scotia in the summer and bring our kids back home, we'd always go to rural Pictou County, and it kind of really grew on us, I guess. It wasn't really something we initially thought, well, gee, let's live there, but it grew on us, and ultimately the decision to live in rural Pictou County was made for me. I always say I followed a woman to Pictou County because Carol said we're going to go there. So it's been an incredibly good decision for us. I mean, raising our kids in Pictou County has been just a wonderful experience. So I think what I would say to people is the quality of life that we can offer in Nova Scotia in general it's really unparalleled. You're never far from a city. You're never far from a beach. You can get in the car and drive to down the valley, a beautiful part of the province. So, but actually where you live, you can experience lots of different things. And I think through the pandemic, I mean, I certainly heard from a lot of people who lived in bigger cities and were locked down in bigger cities, and they were looking on social media at their friends or people that they went to school with back in Nova Scotia who were walking on a country road or on a beach, and here they were locked down in a condo somewhere. So it's all about finding the right balance. So I'm a big advocate for rural Nova Scotia. There's tons of opportunities in rural Nova Scotia. There's a quality of life that is really strong, and you can have all that, and you're never far from the city. You're just never far from the city. So in Pictou, living in Pictou County, and now as Premier, I spend a lot of time in the city. But even if I'm in the city all week, if there's something going on in Pictou County, maybe it's a birthday dinner or something, it's easy to drive back and then drive back to the city. So you can find what you're looking for in Nova Scotia, whether it's rural, whether it's urban. You can find it, and you can actually get into a position where you can have the best of all worlds.
Definitely, being close to the city is nice. As someone who grew up in rural Manitoba, not close to a city, that is one thing I appreciate about Nova Scotia for sure, is that it's easy to travel around and see lots of it, and it is a beautiful province. So it's been about 7 months now since your government has taken office. What would you like to highlight from those first few months?
So, is that all it's been? 7 months? My hair was black when I said no. I'm just it's look. Here's what I would say is time is flying. It is incredibly. It's such an honor to be the Premier of the province, because I always, when I went into politics, I always wanted to be part of the government that could get things done. They just could, could move things forward. And now that we're in this position and we have that opportunity, we feel that sense of urgency to get things done. So obviously, I was elected on a very strong mandate on healthcare, in improving access to healthcare, fixing healthcare. So we're very, very focused on healthcare. And I think, that the pandemic has certainly absorbed a lot of attention and taken a lot of management effort and time. But even through that, we've managed to make a number of significant improvements to the way healthcare is delivered that will, in time, really people will start to see the difference. So we offered virtual care to everyone who doesn't have a family doctor. It's not for everyone, but it's for a lot of things. You can, it's a way you can reach out and get care. Some of the stuff we've done, there's issues in the paramedic system and the ambulance response time. So we've taken some steps to support our paramedics, with, hiring additional vehicles to do patient transfers to free up the paramedics to respond to the 911 calls instead of doing scheduled transfers. So there's a whole series of things in healthcare that I'm very proud of, and we have a lot of work to do, and we'll continue to work on that. So I think the efforts around healthcare have been something that I think people would be interested in. But we've done stuff in other areas too. I mean, obviously, investments in tourism. Just today we announced significant investment in the film industry, which I'm really, really excited about, because one of the goals that we have is to double the population of Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia just tipped over 1 million people. That's a significant milestone for the province. But we put a goal out there, which is an ambitious goal, to double the population to 2 million people. So if we want to double the population to 2 million people, that means people have to know about Nova Scotia. So that's we can promote Nova Scotia through our tourism industry, and people see Nova Scotia and want to come here for a week, and then maybe they move here. But one of the best ways that I know to promote Nova Scotia from a tourism advantage, and then from a possibly relocation, is through our film industry. And people see Curse of Oak Island on TV, and then they want to come and visit there, where they see the lighthouse, or they see Trailer Park Boys, or they see some of this, and they get interested in Nova Scotia. So the synergies between the film industry and our tourism industry are really important to our economy, and they're really important to population growth as a strategy. So look, we've been busy as a government, and some of it's kind of the quiet busy, the sneaky busy, but I'm really pleased with the amount of work that's been done to move a number of files forward.
Yes, definitely sounds like you've been busy. We have lots of tourism and hospitality students here tonight. Is there anything else specific you're doing to help that industry recover from the pandemic?
Yeah, definitely. And there's a great tourism program there at the Mount, so you're getting a good education to those students in that program. But I mean, certainly from the pandemic was tough. I mean, there's just no getting around it. People weren't on the move, and our tourism operators were front and center in feeling those struggles on the economic side. So we did announce a tourism recovery program. That's basically, it's about $12 million at this point. That it's towards marketing. It's towards getting people to. So I think roughly $9 million of that is direct to those people who are operating tourism accommodations, to promote their establishment, to encourage people to come and visit them and their surrounding areas. And then some of it is just kind of on broader marketing, come to Nova Scotia initiatives. So we know that if people know about Nova Scotia, we feel very confident that they'll want to come. So we've got to get the message out there. And I like relying on the operators to tell their own story about their own establishment, about their own communities. And just back to the film thing. So I remember a couple of years ago, it was before the pandemic. So I always say 2 or 3 years, but everything was 2 or 3 years now because nothing happened in the last couple. But it was maybe, when you think about it, it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago that I was visiting Oak Island, And at that time, they were talking about you can buy a ticket to visit the set. And I'll probably have the numbers a bit wrong, but order of magnitude, there was 5,000 tickets available for the summer for people to buy and go visit. And when they flicked the switch online to put those tickets on sale, they had like 120,000 people hitting that website trying to buy those tickets in minutes, like literally in minutes. And those people were trying to get those tickets from all over the world, all through Europe, all through North America. And those are people who wanted to come, wanted that ticket, and they weren't coming to Nova Scotia for one day. They were going to come and make a whole trip of it. So I think the recovery certainly it involves working with the tourism operators, working with the industry experts in ways to promote the industry, and then adding on to that additional promotion through film, through other targeted campaigns. So we're going to invest in our tourism industry. It's incredibly important to our economy. Our traditional industries of farming and fishing and forestry are important to our economy, important to the rural areas. Our tourism is important to our economy, also important to our rural areas as well, and then of course new industries as well. So what drives our economy is a whole basket of things, and we need to keep moving them all forward.
Definitely, yeah. As you mentioned earlier, if everybody was accountants or everybody was teachers, we wouldn't get very far. So we definitely need a good mix of things. You also talked about healthcare a bit. Can you tell us a bit more about your goal specifically to improve mental health care in Nova Scotia?
Yeah, certainly. So this is a really big issue, and something that I've personally been passionate about, is just making sure that people have access to the services they need on a timely basis. So access is an issue. It's an issue in primary care. We see it also in our surgical wait times, but we see it in our mental health support system as well. So we've been very focused on this. So one of the first things we did was we established a minister of addictions and mental health. This would be the first minister in Nova Scotia's history that has responsibility for addictions and mental health, that generally would be buried into a much larger health portfolio. But it was really important to me to make somebody at the highest level of government, at the cabinet table, a minister for the province, that is accountable and responsible to Nova Scotians and making sure they can access the services that they need. So we have that. That's Minister Brian Comer. He's wonderful, and there's a lot of work being done on access. And one of the things that we're trying to do is addictions and mental health. And I should also say that I call that the Minister of Addictions and Mental Health. Some people refer to it as the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, or they kind of go, but I always kind of correct it and say it's addictions and mental health. And the reason is that I think if you have it the other way, then people over time have a tendency to drop the last bit off. So mental health and addictions just becomes mental health, and they stop saying the addictions part. So if you put addictions first, because it's really important too that we continue to focus on those with addictions and need to support there. So, but one of the things that I think will be really effective in opening up access is that this whole area is an area that often, if you have the financial resources, you can get the help through the private industry. If you're relying on the public system, you tend to be waiting a long time. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to open up that system. So even if you're a private psychiatrist or psychologist and you see somebody, you can bill the province. So we'll pay that. So what I want to do is mobilize the resources of the province for the benefit of Nova Scotians. So all those people working in private practice, mobilize their skill set. For those that are can help people and are appropriately trained and stuff, of course, but mobilize their skill set to help Nova Scotians, and not limited to just those Nova Scotians that can afford to pay for it. So we open up the pool of resources, which will open up access. So these are some of the initiatives that we're working on. And look, they used to say that one in five Canadians was impacted by somebody with their social circle or themselves or their family with mental health needs. Now they say it's 1 in 3, and so I believe that the pandemic has been hard on a lot of people. I'm sure we all see that in our own social circles. So there's a big need, and traditionally in this province, the system has almost been set up that if you think you're going to harm yourself or harm somebody else, then go to an emergency room. Well, I think that's pretty cruel to allow people to get to that stage before you offer a hand. So we're always focused on opening up the access so people have somebody to reach out to where they can get that help. So we're focused on it, and we know that now as much as ever, the need is significant, and we need to support people.
Yeah, the pandemic has definitely been an area that has affected us all and affected many different areas of our lives. Recovering from that's obviously going to take time. What do you see as your biggest challenges ahead in regards to recovering from the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's still healthcare. I'm very focused on healthcare in general. Including that would include seniors care, long-term care, but just in general. There's economic challenges for sure, but for Nova Scotia, I think right now it's a bit of a different time in the world. This tragedy that's unfolding in front of our eyes in Ukraine is just breathtakingly sad. And that's having an impact on lots of parts of our life. But when we come through the pandemic, Nova Scotia is well positioned in many ways for for a strong economic recovery. Our population is growing. People drive economies. People are wanting to be here and live here and make a life here and start a company here. So there's some positives that are showing up there, but to really let that happen to the strongest possible extent, government has to do some certain things. So people have to have access to the internet. People are wanting to work from home in rural areas or elsewhere. They have to have access to the internet. So we have needs that we're working on that. So good, that's something government has to do. People who move here that have a family or know at some point they want to start a family, they're interested in the education system. They want to make sure that their loved one will get a great education in their community and then have incredible post-secondary opportunities. We have great post-secondary institutions as well. But so internet, education, and healthcare. People are just not going to want to live here and continue to live here if they can't access healthcare, or if they're afraid they won't be able to get help. Now, saying all that, there was challenges in healthcare before the pandemic. Coming out of the pandemic, the surgery wait times are pretty shocking right now. So a lot of stuff was just on hold, canceled, rescheduled. So there's big challenges in healthcare, and that's why that's getting so much of my attention and the leadership team's attention. But we're making progress, as I said, and we'll continue to move that needle along and make sure that people see Nova Scotia as a place where they can achieve everything they want to achieve.
So you recognize the need to move away from coal power in Nova Scotia. What steps are your team taking towards a more sustainable energy source for Nova Scotia?
Yeah, so this is a big question. Obviously, we have very ambitious environmental goals. Greening the grid is part of that, and moving away from coal to renewables is part of it. So people may have noticed in the last little while the solar issue has been in the news. Nova Scotia Power had some plans on some changes they would make to the solar industry that weren't well received by many Nova Scotians, myself included. So we took steps to make sure that solar remains an option for people. But then, the longer term, if we look at where our energy generation is going to come from, there's hydro for sure through the Maritime Link, through the Newfoundland Labrador projects. potentially hydro through Quebec Hydro, through the Maritime Loop. There's a few hurdles to clear on that one just yet, but certainly wind power as well. The wind doesn't always blow, but when it does, Nova Scotia has incredible wind speeds and can generate. So the energy grid will be a mix of those things, so a mix of renewables, and then coal for a little while, and then maybe some natural gas and some of those conversions as a kind of a backup supply. But we have very strong ambitions on the greening of the grid and really strong environmental goals overall.
Yeah, I think anyone that took a step outside today in Nova Scotia is aware of how strong our wind is here. So, so what surprises you most about the job, or is there anything that keeps you up at night?
Yeah, so look, I spent 8 years in opposition, and I kind of prided myself on really trying to understand the issues. I've never really been one that just says, well, if the other party says this, then I have to say that. I'm not really interested in just kind of those arguments for the sake of arguments, or just to take the other side of it. So I've always tried to pride myself on really understanding the issues and really only taking positions of things that we would do, or saying things that we ultimately would do, and to hold ourselves to that standard. So when we campaigned, we were pretty clear on the platform that we put forward that it wasn't just political promises. It was my name assigned to it, and that we would do them, and we're executing on those. But all of that said, all of that preparation and analysis and understanding, I think it still surprises me of how many different issues there are at any one time. There's it's a complex world, and people have very, very specific living situations and living and issues and all this type of stuff. So there's a wide range of issues that are happening in the province at any one time. And I think as much as I thought I was prepared for that still would surprise me, to be honest.
Definitely, yeah. Everyone has, their own things going on at home, and it's often hard to understand what those things are when you're not experiencing it yourself. What has been your most impactful learning opportunity since taking the role?
I think just I have an incredible opportunity to meet with a wide range of people that so I'm really blessed in that way, and the kind of the experts and different people that I have access to. So I would say that probably the most impactful time that I've had in the office as Premier would be an afternoon that I had the opportunity to spend with former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. We spent an afternoon together, and just listening to, he had a pretty, Canada was well governed when he was Prime Minister, and a lot of people might not know, he won awards for being the greenest Prime Minister, and did some pretty amazing trade deals. And just when you have the opportunity to be around somebody who has accomplished so much and has so many different unique perspectives, and is so generous, which is with his insight and his knowledge, and because he really just only wants good things for people and good things for communities in the country, and that's all he really wants. So I would say I'm very blessed in that way, and the people that I get the opportunity to meet and learn from. And I try to take something away from every single one of those discussions, whether it's, I had an interesting discussion. I was walking down the street last night with my son, actually, and there was a family walking, and they kind of recognized me, and they stopped, and we chatted a little bit, and turned out it was one of them's birthday, and we had a little chat. And I was kind of left. It was just a fun discussion. And then somebody in the office today showed me a Reddit stream that this person who has moved here from India was talking about. Wow, I was walking down the street and I saw the Premier, and he stopped and talked to me, and how that would never happen back in India, right? So, but also learned something from that discussion about how somebody who's new to the country, new to the province, how they see this province through their eyes, right? So, I think it's one thing that I hold near and dear is that opportunity to meet people and have very frank discussions with them in the most sincere, casual ways that leaves an impression on you.
Definitely, yeah. There's lots of international students here at MSVU too, and that's one thing I love, interacting with them and learning from them. So as we know, there's lots of international students here and at other universities in Nova Scotia. What is the government doing to support and retain them upon graduation?
Yeah, so there is, we want them, first off, we want them to stay. I will say that. And thank you for coming and studying here. And we want you to make your life in this province for sure. You make our community stronger. So I'm actually really excited right now, just on the population growth file, which is immigration and migration. The federal Minister of Immigration is Sean Fraser from Pictou County. He's actually my member of Parliament, so I have a great relationship with Sean Fraser. We're on the same page on immigration and population growth. So we're always looking for ways that we can open up and make sure that it's the red carpet is there for those who want to stay and want to make their life here. We have to work with the federal government on that. A lot of these things are federal policies, but as I say, I'm really excited with Sean Fraser in that role, that we can look at different programs and just opportunities. So what I would say too, and I'd kind of throw it back to the group assembled here, to the extent that you're aware of hurdles or aware of just silly little things that are kind of getting in the way, that you're worried might impact your ability to stay in Canada and in Nova Scotia, reach out to me on those too. We'll try to move those. We'll try to move those hurdles away, because we definitely want you to stay, make your life here.
So with a university audience, is there anything you would like them to know about your plans for the future and how you're encouraging students in general to start their careers here and stay in Nova Scotia?
Yeah, so look, when I talk about population growth, you have to also talk about right sizing the demographics of the province. So we're an older province, and so we need more people, but we need more younger people as well. So I think that if you go back a couple of years, maybe the year before the pandemic, the population of Nova Scotia went up by about 5,000 people, which it's all right. It's on 1 million people. It's not great. It's not bad, But when you really look at it, what happened is 20,000 people moved here, and 15,000 moved away, and the net was 5,000. A lot of those 15,000 that moved away were people who came here to go to school. So if we could retain a larger and larger portion of that 15, then we can grow. You can see how we can grow our population quicker, and how we can really get to work on right sizing our demographics quicker. So these two things go hand in hand. So I think that this is a great it's a vibrant province to start a career in, because there's so many different wide-ranging opportunities. And I guess what I would say is I sincerely hope that everyone on this call and students in post-secondary institutions in this province see it as a place where, hey, I could make a go at it here. I could live here, right? Because that's what we want, and I think that's my focus is in promoting the province to make sure that people see just that.
Well, as someone that's not from Nova Scotia, I definitely see the appeal of Nova Scotia. I moved here specifically for school, and there's so many things about Nova Scotia that drew me in. And yeah, I definitely think it's a good place to set up life, if you will.
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
So speaking of university, if you could have chosen another university path, what do you think it would have been?
I haven't this is a tough question, because I kind of, as I said, like I kind of had a goal that I kind of followed it, and I think the reason I find it tough is because the path that I chose opened so many different unique opportunities to me. So it's not like became one profession and I was stuck there. I think as an accountant, also living in Bermuda and living abroad and stuff, you get to see different life experiences. And I think that's really the key. So I'm an accountant. I don't do a lot of accounting anymore, but I use those skills, but I'm not preparing balance sheets and income statements every day, right? So I've been able to follow that career, but open up other doors. Whereas, you know, if I was in a specific career where it was just kind of limited to that, I might be saying, well, gee, what if I would have been? But I don't really have any regrets, right? So, but so once I kind of zero in on the accounting thing, I didn't really look any other directions. But if I would have, I guess it probably still would have been, you know, business orientated, finance, marketing, all skills that I've kind of learned through accounting and used in different jobs and careers that I've had. But what I would say is the flip side of that is never be afraid to recognize that it's time for a change, right? So it's really important that people are excited about the future. And if you're not loving what you're doing, it can be very hard to be excited about the future. So it's, as I said, a lot of my friends my age have had numerous careers. So never be afraid to say, hey, I'm going to try something different. I mean, that takes a certain degree of confidence, but I think it's a real key to happiness.
Yes, definitely. The further I get into my accounting schooling, the more I have learned that, you know, accounting isn't just doing tax preparation. I think that's kind of a misconception lots of people have about accountants, but it opens up a lot of doors, definitely. So if you could go back to your university self, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Just always shoot high. Like it's I think in life there's a lot of opportunity to walk down the middle of the road, and that's a nice safe place to be. You're in the middle, you know, you're a little bit of leeway on either side, but if you're walking on the very edge, you know, it's a little riskier place, but it can be a rewarding place as well. So I would say just keep shooting high. For that would be the best advice that I would have for myself, my own kids, for anyone on this call. Is there's a lot that's possible, but it's only possible when people seize it and run for it. So just everyone just shoot very high and just go for it.
Definitely. Thank you very much. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff to see if there's any student questions that were submitted while we were chatting, but thank you again for taking the time to be here tonight.
My pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jen. Premier, I did actually, a few questions kind of came in. I think they have a common theme. So I'll try and wrap it into a single question. But you spoke earlier about population growth, which has been, you know, I think a really great story for Nova Scotia over the last couple of years. How does government approach infrastructure and ensuring that there's enough, I guess, infrastructure support to support that population growth? And, you know, I know your big mandate has been healthcare, and, you know, obviously the pandemic puts us behind the 8 ball, but, you know, I think also you're trying to catch up to this population growth. So, you know, around schools and healthcare, how does government approach supporting that population growth?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because it really has to be planned growth. Our population has been growing in the province for a few years, but look at the housing crisis we have. You know, we have incredible pressure on the housing stock system. So that tells me that the planning wasn't always there, right? So we're very focused on housing. We put a lot of effort and energy into the housing file, and we capped the rents for 2 years. We put the rent cap in for 2 years, which that was really for 2 years to give government its own timeline. Like, we have to get stuff done in 2 years. We have to increase the housing supply in 2 years. So there's our end goal, and then now we have to feel the urgency to do it. Same thing around, you know, you mentioned schools, but, you know, sewer and water infrastructure, all these types of things. So I think when you're actually working towards the growth and actively pursuing it, you also have, you know, the more than the obligation to plan for those other things, but you have the responsibility. So that's what we're doing. So we're looking at planned growth, and we know that there's a lot of investment that's required, but this is the time to invest in people, invest in healthcare, invest in infrastructure, invest in tourism. This is the time to invest in people, and I think the trick for government is if we make the right investments, it will pay off. So there's a lot of pressure on us to be making the right investments around infrastructure and all these other areas. So planned growth is you're absolutely right. It's something we can't lose sight of, the planning part of it.
Thank you. So I think that's really kind of a wrap for the questions. So Premier, thank you a million times over on behalf of the Mount, the Department of Business and Tourism. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know they're pretty action-packed these days, so really appreciate the last 45 minutes or so. And on behalf of everyone here, thank you very much. And to all those who attended, hopefully you enjoyed this and took something of value from this. I know, speaking for the students, my students that are here, they were really excited. And I think this perspective and getting outside of the classroom is just invaluable from an education standpoint. So again, Mr. Premier, thank you so much, and all the best in everything, and look forward to connecting with you at some point soon. So you're on mute.
Yeah, the most famous words in the English language. You're on mute. But listen, thank you. It was my absolute honor and pleasure to be with you tonight. And hopefully we'll maybe see you on campus someday and get a chance to meet some of the students and hear directly from them some of what they're interested in about Nova Scotia and what they see as possible for this province. So I'd love to do that, and look forward to the time we get to do that too. But thanks for having me tonight.
Great. Thanks so much. We'd love to host you anytime, and I'll take you up on that and about Catherine. So appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. See you later. Take care.
Take care, guys.